All right, good morning, everybody. Don't have a whole lot of time today. Good morning, good morning. Okay, so a couple things I want to look at is not just like the SPY and everything, but I kind of want to go over what's going on with all of our trades that we've been setting up. So I just want to go from the start of our list. All right, so HPQ, we talked about shorting the top of this. Um, we have a 25 put for June 18th. Sorry, I'm half asleep right now. These should be hitting today very well. You can close these today, or you can try to wait for this to push down a little further, a little closer to that 20 MA. But with this contract, it should be up quite a bit today. Again, we bought those contracts pretty much right when this was almost $30. Um, so now the pre-market's at 26.88. Those short positions are doing very well. Let's check out reply. We took these around, I think, 9.90 yesterday. Not exactly at this $10 mark, but very, very close to it. Um, these are, let me check my actual phone. These are the $8 puts, okay, for June 18th. So technically these are almost in the money, only off by 80 something cents. I would try to continue to hold for that level because it looks very, very promising. So that should do very good too. So I'm going to mark that off. Speaking of mark, let's go to mark. Mark, we took this yesterday around 114. These are the 124 calls to the upside. Currently marks at 116. So not exactly the high of the day, but it's starting to pull back up there again. Um, so this is still looking good. We still have plenty of time in that. Just let those contracts run a little farther. Now, Starbucks needs to have a bounce here. Um, we're pretty well low or pretty well extended below the lower Bollinger. Sorry, I can't talk today. We're extended pretty well below the lower Bollinger here. And we're just kind of waiting for that breakout to happen. If it doesn't happen by Friday, then we'll probably reposition. So for Starbucks, we're going to write a note to check Friday. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, not a whole lot of time before the market opens. Just kind of going through our trades really quick. So SMCI, we have the puts pretty much from the top of yesterday. These still look really good. We have been seeing a little bit of a breakdown. Currently, SMCI is down almost 2%. Well, it is down 2%. It's currently at 49.21. So we still have plenty of time on those puts. And again, those are the 38 puts for June. Um, we're simply just trying to look for some support retest, whether it's just going to the 5 mile, which the 5 mile is at 44.53. We'll pull up to about 46 today. So whether it's just going down to retest that, whether it's going down to retest the 10 mile, or if we're going to get all the way down to the 20 mile, which is at the 3588. Our 38 strike should cover the majority of that. So that's still looking good. That's starting to move in the position that we need it. Let's check Uber. Uber wasn't looking too good this morning from what I remember. So we're still kind of looking for the same thing. We're still looking for this cup and handle breakout. Has not broken down entirely, but potentially there's this head and shoulders starting to form here. And if this takes, then we're going to do something about these contracts. But so far, it still looks within reason to hit, primarily because we still have to invalidate this entire range right here. Sorry for all the drawings. But we have to invalidate this bottom of this cup to really have this turn bearish on us. Until then, technically this could still be this cup's handle. We could be forming liquidity for this inverse head and shoulders potentially, which if that's the case, then that would be very positive for our position. So it's still a little too early to determine that, but if we start losing this level today, then we will probably reposition what we have in Uber. Good morning. Can I look at TE really quick? Let's see. T1 Energy. So T1 looks very solid. Looks like you're probably going to push to about this $14 range before really pulling back. Now you can have a rejection before that upper Bollinger. That happens with us with the SPY very often, especially over the last basically 6 months now. We've been rejecting this upper Bollinger, but this symbol isn't. This symbol likes to push into this upper Bollinger quite a bit, so I'm really expecting this support consolidation retest, bouncing back up basically to this 15, or excuse me, $13, $14 range. From there, I would look for a deeper support retest. But you do have this very nice cup formed. So if that's a handle forming on this cup, then you're going to head up quite a bit. Basically just look for, are we going to reject this upper Bollinger, or are we going to push the level, close above it, and then have that upper Bollinger day 1, day 2? So market's opening right now, so I just want to go ahead and look at the SPY really quick. Now these SOXS puts that we talked about, again, remember we took these back when SOXS was up at, I want to say 6.5, 6.6, something like that. Our SOXS puts are doing very, very, very well this week. The 5 mile is currently at the 757.46, which means that we're pretty much 5 mile testing currently. With that being the case, we should have the expectations. So I said 560, 760 if I remember correctly. basically from there, what's that daily 5 mile at? 5 or 757.52. 52 and the 55. Alright, so that's kind of the range on the day. Is that this is where the 5 mile is located. Basically, it's right in the center here. We should be expecting basically the upper bounds of this level being tested and the lower bounds. So there should be a test both to the upside and the downside of this moving average today. Now, whether this looks like pulling up, then pushing down, or pushing down and then pulling up, we'll have to determine. Now, what's really important though is that what happens to the market either going above this level or going below this level. Sorry, it's kind of hard to fit everything in here. Because are we going to see a bounce off of this 5 mile basically to the upper Bollinger, or are we going to see this break down below the 5 mile support, starting to head to the 10 mile support, things like that. So put positions look very good. I would try to time a put with this upper Bollinger here if you can, or if you're trading SPY anyway. Looks very, very positive. Now, the VVIX is very elevated today. It's at 91.19. So that's still up quite a bit. Now, let me look. So our SMCI is doing very nicely. Those SoFi puts doing very good. Those HPQ puts doing very good. Starbucks calls are starting to gain some weight again. So we're going to look at Starbucks here in a second. Okay, so I want to look at Starbucks really quick. So it is up. It is having that bounce. It's good. It's kind of what we're looking for. Sort of been expecting that bounce from the lower Bollinger to the upside already, so that's positive that that's going through. Now we just need this out of Uber as well, and I'll be a happy camper. Now I want to look at SMCI really quick. So this is starting to break down. Have that inverse cup form there. Has not invalidated that cup, so if we continue breaking downward, this is going to form that handle to the downside, which will help break us down further. So looking for that to complete. SPY pretty much just anticipating a 5 mile test today. The trade for Uber, we have the 80 calls for June 18th. So let's go back to Uber really quick. And I apologize all these drawings. But essentially what we're trying to do here is simply close this cup right here. Okay. And this cup takes us all the way up to the basically 81. So we're just trying to close this cup to get to the 80 strike. Um, or even taking profit before that. But that's the goal, is to try to pull this in the money, hit that 80 strike basically, have it turn in the money by $1, and it'll be at that point a very nice contract. Um, you know, because again, our entry on these were at 0.38, or that's my average currently on in them is 0.38. And that would put this contract basically up to like $2 or $3. Um, so that's very good. That's very positive. That's what we're trying to do with a lot of these different contracts is get them from basically being very, very cheap to running at the money slash in the money. So those HPQ puts, you can be closing those pretty much anytime. Again, I'm very happy with that position overall. A lot of people told me that position wouldn't hit. Um, I disagreed. Now, we still have room to head downward. So if you want to try to claim that basically like $23 range, you can. But this is a very large cup, and we are expecting a handle to the downside to basically break out. Um, so if we do get to the 20 mil, that's going to be a very, very ideal range to actually buy calls into this at that point. So that's kind of the whole point of this short, is that we're shorting for bullish purposes. We're trying to find the bottom of this handle. From the bottom of the handle, exit those puts, enter calls, and really just claim a lot of this upside. So that's the goal with HPQ. But again, with these cheap contracts, feel free to close them. Um, once you're starting to find profit. These aren't something you have to hold for an extremely long time. We do have them dated, um, but not every single one of these trades are going to work. So if you do have a good trade or a good day with one of these trades, then don't be afraid to take the profit on it. Let's check reply. So I did see reply pulling up here. And we're just going to check the daily time frame here for a moment. We've still not 5 mile retested, which is telling me that we should be pulling away from this upper range and heading down towards that 817 range. Even with the buying we're seeing currently. So I still do like that position. Even if it is slightly working against you currently. Now on SPY here, we do have this inverse cup closing. It's basically all the way at that 757.45, hitting that level right now. From that level, we can see a slight pull upward. So there is room for calls to the upside. I'm not going to be taking them. Just letting you know what I see right now currently. Again, I'm not going to be trading very long today, so this is going to be a fairly short stream. So sell it in the center. Okay, so um, let's just look at the spread on it. There's a spread between 54 or 0.54 to 0.66. Okay, so ideally what I try to do is I try to say, okay, let me toss my contract in the center. That's not market selling. Um, that's not, really putting a limit order too much. It's just set it for the mid price. Um, Usually it'll go at that mid price and you're not going to be losing, you know, too many dollars on one side or the other. But don't just market sell into these contracts. These are not the contracts to do that. Do we see a decent amount of downside for SPY today? Yes, I do. Just because we are starting to do a 5-mile retest. And just very quickly, the 5-mile on the daily time frame is at this 757.32. That means we should expect to hold $2 above and below this price if we're going to be fully testing this level. From that test, we should be seeing either a major bounce to the upside or a major pull down. So is there room to short today? Absolutely. Is there room to take calls today? Absolutely. It's going to be the kind of one of those type of days where there is room for both. Um, Technically, we're pretty much right at that 5-mile currently. So with the market telling us that, okay, bottom of this large inverse cup, we hit our level, very likely going to see some call upside. Okay, before further heading downward. So very likely we're going to be testing kind of the upper bounds of the 5-mile. And then from there, we can have a pretty quality short position to the downside. So that's kind of the current expectation. And then we'll see if we get a bounce or break above this level or not. But I'm going to make this green to represent the 5-mile so that we're all kind of just aware what this big looming green box is. Now I want to check Starbucks. So Starbucks did close this smaller cup here. From that, I kind of expect a small handle and then starting to pull upward towards this basically 97 range. Close this cup. From that cup, form another handle. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So that should be very nice. We are seeing the VVIX ticking upward today. So it's currently at 91.33. So dealers are hedging positions today. Seeing quite a bit of pull down. Now potentially they're going for this very large inverse cup here. Which if they do that, that means they're testing all the way down to the lower bounds of the 5-mile while still completing this structure, which would make calls at this level very, very, very good if we can pull down all the way. Very close to that level, so I do think they're going to take it. It's the 755.92. We only need about 40 more cents here. The SMCI puts are starting to do quite nicely. Up a little bit, but not really expecting to be up a whole lot of it just right this moment. We are seeing this continue to fall though, which is kind of exactly what I'm looking for. Kind of looking for this inverse cup to close to the downside. Bottom of this inverse cup is at that 37 range, which we have the 38 strike. So if we can close this cup to the downside, that will run those contracts in the money. So those are looking very, very nice. Let's check the SPY here. Looks like they are trying to close that gap. Yep, they are taking that. So calls from the very bottom of this should be really nice. Okay, even as bearish as the day is. Um, Again, technically we're at the lower bounds of the 5 mile. So as bearish as the market might look right now, this is still a very, quality range to be targeting calls towards that upside. Sorry, I'm just looking through some positions really quick. Yeah, these SMCI puts are starting to do really nicely. So yeah, we're definitely in a good call buying range. And for these calls, I would be targeting close to that 757 range, not the 759, even though the 5 mile or the 20 mile is closer to that 759. That'll be pulling down throughout the session. How does ELF look? Let's see. Let's see how ELF looks. So ELF is looking pretty bearish. However, again, we do look for this lower Bollinger to create buying. If we're going to be pulling back down, basically closing a cup at the bottom there, then this will be, but you see we've already hit that range. So I'm not entirely certain this is going to turn bearish. Technically we do have a small cup formed right here with a handle. That should pull up towards that $70 range, which again, these are the 61 strike calls, if I remember correctly. Yeah, these are the 61 strike calls for June 18th. So if we get this handle breakout to the upside, then this should carry us all the way up to basically that 72 range. That's not even the range we're looking for. Again, we have 61 strike calls. So if we could even get half of this move, we're going to be profiting very heavily. So I do like those a lot, even if they are down quite a bit currently. And let's check the SPY. SPY should be finding buying at this range. We have closed the larger inverse cup. Technically, we've closed it all the way to this even deeper level. So I really do like calls. actually quite a heavy support range too here. And this was slightly below the 5 mil, which means that that kind of gives you a really nice condition to pull all the way to the top of the 5 mil. This is allowing us to test the lower bounds of it while overall still being in a bullish posture. Now it looks very, very bearish with this large inverse cup closing. This can be very bearish. This can hit the top of this 5 mil basically, find a rejection downward. But with us already being at the lower bounds of the 5 mil today, that can actually create very bullish conditions to the upside. So the calls here should be very solid. Okay, I mean, they should take you basically all the way up towards that top level of the 5 mil, which again, that's going to be around that 759.60. ELF, these are the, let me type them out. ELF 61 calls for June 18th. So those should hit very nicely. Because again, kind of from the measured move, we're expecting to pull up above that strike almost a whole $10. If we even get that measured move that we're expecting. So it looks really nice. Even with some of the selling this morning, those calls look really, really, really positive. Now I want to look at SMCI because it is starting to sell pretty heavily. My contracts are up about 22% currently right now. Those SoFi puts would have been super good. I'm kind of disappointed we didn't get a chance to talk about those. But I was looking at SoFi in the pre-market yesterday, but forgot to mention within the trades. But we had this push into the upper Bollinger here, which created a very, very solid short position. We were targeting the 16 puts, which technically would basically almost be in the money at this point. So those are running really hard. Those are up over 113% on our watch list. So unfortunately, I did not take it, but the trade was available. And I want to go back to the SPY for a moment. Starting to see a little bit of that bounce here. Again, this is the bottom of a very large inverse cup. We expect to see some bullish structure to continue heading upward. And we have the 5 mile above us, so if the market truly wants to fully test this level, we are, at the range to begin testing this level fully. And I want to look at the VVIX here. Actually, it's pulling downward some. We do have a little bit of a cup formed here, but it is pulling downward from the high of the day. So the high of the day was 91.60. It's currently at 91.13. So pulling down slightly. That should give this upside reprieve to test the 5 mile on the daily time frame. Now give me just a second. I need to get a drink of something. So I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Alright, so everybody's calls, if you did take calls, should be starting to pick up some weight here. Again, targeting that 757 strike, not the 759. Really just kind of be neutral and try to target the 5 mile itself rather than um the full 20 mile. Just 1 second, everybody. Sorry, I apologize for that. Let's see Dell, because Dell was kind of the whole reason why we took the HPQ um, puts to begin with, because they're following that same exact pattern. So on Dell, we are getting ready to 5 mile test, it looks like. 5 mile is currently at the 409.88. So from this level, okay, we can have a push all the way back up to the upper Bollinger, or we can start seeing this break down, excuse me, towards that 20 mile. So quite a large range, and I'm not saying that's going to happen today, but that's kind of what happens from this move that's occurring. Either we're going to test this level and we're going to have a bounce from it, or we're going to test the level and reject it. I'm starting to lose my voice. Wow, this stupid flu is driving me crazy. So we still have a lot of room to test that 5 mile. Again, with the 5 mile, we should be expecting a whole $2 above and below. So we should be seeing basically the 407.86 all the way to the 411.86 for that 5 mile to be fully tested. So Dell potentially has a lot more room to go down, but today's 5 mile test is very important in determining whether that's going to continue downward or not. SPY starting to bounce and just following our rules as standard. Remember, take about 80% of the call profit once we do get to the 20 mile. The 5-minute 20 mile is at the 757.65. So you'd basically set your conditional market orders slightly under that level. So probably around the 750, 753. Okay. Um, Exit, roughly about 80% of those calls. If you have any runners, you can run them up to the high of the 5 mile on the daily time frame. Sorry, my voice is cutting out so bad right now. Um, but still take a large majority of the profit at that 20 mile range. Okay. And that's coming up here very, very soon. Good morning. Right now we're taking calls from the low of the day up towards this 757.56. We have a conditional order set to the 757.53. So once we hit that 20-mile range, it'll cut 80% of the calls. If there's room to the upside to run further, we'll do so. But so far today, very, very quality entry. And the reason why those calls look so good is because we close this very large inverse cup to the downside. From the bottom of that cup, we do expect bullishness, and that bullishness coincides a lot with where the daily 5-mile is at. So expecting kind of this full 5-mile retest from the lower side to the upper side. So there's a lot of room on these calls, even though we did have a, quote unquote, little bit of a selling off this morning. Now the VVIX is getting absolutely destroyed right now. It was all the way at the 91.60. It's currently at the 90.27, so we're pulling down very heavily. With us pushing into this lower Bollinger, this can create the conditions for the VVIX to have a little bit of a reprieve, so just be aware of that. But the call exit should be coming up very soon here. Missed the call entry. Can we enter puts at the middle? Technically you can, but that's not really the ideal range for puts today. You really want to try to enter puts when we get to the upper Bollinger. The upper Bollinger will be pulling down with this 20-mile. So we should be able to enter puts sort of at the high of the day to be able to head downward and retest the 20-mile if we're going to have, some really quality puts. But so far we are seeing some signals of market buying. The HIG did sell downward quite a bit today, and so far it is pulling back up. It did go down to the 97.65, currently at the 97, excuse me, at the 97.72. So if we see continued buying in this, then along with the VVIX dropping, that should be telling us that, we have quite a lot of upside today. So original exit will be at that 20-mile. If you can have runners run to the upside, that would be ideal. And from that upside, that's when you take the short. Yeah, it works very well. Just going from lower Bollinger to upper Bollinger, lower Bollinger to upper Bollinger. Um, this is why I do the trading style that I do. Because exactly with Apple today, even though we don't 0DT trade Apple, you absolutely could have been trading Apple very successfully today. There was a very quality call entry all the way to the upside, and now very quality put entry all the way to that downside. From there, a little bit of chop, can still be breaking down or continue heading upward, but so far two very quality trades within Apple were there to be taken. So you can use this style on a lot of different symbols. Unfortunately, I just kind of follow the SPY as it is, one of the main ones. The conditional order is at the 757.53. I would move that down a little further now. So I'd move that down to about 757. Do 757.43. Just so that it really secures that 20-mile exit. Just in case today gets, extremely bearish. Remember, we did close this very large inverse cup. So from that, we can form a handle to the downside. So exiting on that 20 mile is going to be very quality today. Let's see, SMCI. Breaking down very nicely today. Once we really lose this level, we should aim to basically close out this liquidity here. Which that's what I'm looking for. So plenty of room down in those SMCI puts today. Not setting up any of those today, just because I basically have to go in like 10 minutes from now. I have to take my daughter to school and everything, and today is kind of the day that I go spend with my wife. Um, so I'm not going to be on too much longer. I don't really want to suggest any small contracts right at this moment, but I will be building up a list for tomorrow. Um, for tomorrow's stream so that we can go over a lot of different options and um, hopefully find some really solid trades. Sorry, I'm just looking at something on my phone really quick. Really want to see a bounce out of Uber. It's one of the ones that I'm mainly waiting on right now. Starbucks starting to bounce though, so that's good. It's closing some bullish cups to the upside as well. So that's looking very positive. Um, Again, we have the 115 calls for July 17th. Um, Plenty of time on these, so those should be very nice. So that's basically what we're looking for. We're just simply looking for some of this upside reprieve. And there was this very nice cup formed here with this, you know, very potential handle. And with identifying that, that tells me that, okay, we can form this very large inverse head and shoulders liquidity while fulfilling this bullish cup and handle, and very likely see that break out not only to the 124 range, but slightly above it. So that's why I really like those calls. Um, I think they're going to move super hard. Okay, SPY here starting to give us our upside. Uber announced layoffs. It's not good. I don't like when people get laid off. But unfortunately, that's probably gonna help the market price. Um, we'll see. We'll reevaluate this um, early on in tomorrow's stream, depending on kind of what happens with the end of the day and everything. Let's check drip. Yeah, it's getting beat up pretty bad. Um, it's hard to say from like a structural perspective because technically this is still really bullish structure. This is kind of just waiting to break out. But the June 18th is, not too long away. And that's starting to cut it close with in terms of trying to time a conflict ending. So if you're not feeling comfortable with trying to ride those upward, then I would cut those. Um, we do have positions in the September and December for the 5 call strike as well, which I'm going to be hanging on to pretty much all of those. I really do expect this conflict to end sooner than later. We were trying to time that with the June 18th, but these ceasefire talks and everything have just been an absolute mess. So let's check open. Open, open, open. Open's fine here. And the reason why open's fine is because this is a very bullish structure. Okay. That's for sure completed. Okay. Not concerned about that one bit. From this bullish structure, we do expect a handle to the upside, which is, almost exactly what many of us are looking for to enter after this lower Bollinger entry. After we get that breakout, we do look for the cup to close, handle, and from that handle, start closing some of these gaps. But potentially this could run very, very hard from this low. So I do like it, even if the contracts are getting a little beaten up right now. Um, Structurally, this looks very great. Want to check the SPY. Now our exit is still set to the 757 43. I'm fine with taking that level. You can try to set it slightly below the 20 mile, which would basically be around that 757.31 if you want to be very safe with those calls. But overall, um, those look fine to run to that 43 range that we talked about. And with open starting to pull down that way, I actually want to look at some of these 6 straight calls for that same time period that we have for the June 18th. Because I actually think those 6 straight calls could hit really, really well. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in one of those just to see how that goes. And I also want to get that added to the watch list. Now, these are very cheap. So if we are going to get the price action we're expecting out of open, then these are going to print insanely hard. I filled these calls, and again, these are the open, and I'll type it out in chat. Those look really, really good. Yes, I am talking about open. Oh, sorry, for the drip calls, um, I'm still willing to ride some of the June ones, but I do have some of the September and December 5 calls. So going to be letting those run. But yes, the 6 calls that I took are for open. Again, this is, and I just want to show this really quick one more time. But I am expecting kind of like this handle to form to the upside. So from that upside, that's going to at least close this cut back to the $6. Okay. So that's looking very positive. Kind of a very quality buy range, even though open has been battered down a little bit. But we're looking for basically just some of these upward breakouts. We have plenty of different ranges to start targeting, like that 6.8, the 7.9, the 8.7. So there's a lot of runway for these calls if we're going to start seeing this upside. So I like that. And added a couple of those. So I added those to the watch list as well. So we'll be seeing how those all play out. Yeah, they're super cheap. They're super cheap. Mine are at the average of $12 per. I only grabbed just a few of them. And again, with these smaller contracts, it's not about grabbing a whole ton of them. It's just about grabbing a couple, letting them run to, you know, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500%. Let them take those profits. Aw, dang, you had puts that you didn't sell. That's unfortunate. Oh, sorry, I didn't see this question. Um, so quick question, what type of order do you set to maximize profit at exit price? So it depends on the symbol, but if the symbol is highly liquid, so for SPY, for example, um, I use the conditional market orders. And basically what that does is you can set your price, not the stop loss, but the actual price of the symbol. So say for this 20 mile exit that we're looking for, we have been talking about setting that conditional order below the 20 mile. So for example, it's currently at the 757.22. I'd probably want to target that 757.17. So I set my conditional order, set it to equal or greater than that price. So if we hit that 757.17, then it's going to market sell my order and I won't have to worry about that. Um, you have to be careful with symbols that do have a larger spread in their shares or in the options. If the spread is very large, then um, you can kind of get a little screwed in terms of the market order. But when it comes to SPY, or like QQQ, semiconductors, things like that, you don't really have to worry because the spread between the bid and the ask is basically going to be close next to nothing. I mean, those are going to be locked right on top of each other. So, um, taking those market conditional orders at that point work out really nicely. No, these are the open 6 calls for June. Okay, everybody. As I said, this stream today was going to be rather short. Um, I do have to get my daughter ready and everything and get ready to take her to her class. So if there's any final questions, I'll go ahead and take them. If not, I appreciate everybody stopping by and trading with me the little bit that we did trade this morning. And hopefully you were able to see some profits through some of these trades, or, have a good expectation of where to go with these trades anyway. Um, I will be streaming tomorrow, and with tomorrow's stream, I will add kind of a whole new bunch of plays to the watch list, and we'll go over them in the morning and see what has good potential or not. And we'll also go over kind of what we're already sitting in to see if, we need to shift any of those positions around or not. But thank you so much for watching, everybody. See, NVIDIA is passing the lower Bollinger. How do you know when the exit continues to drop? Now, is this on the 5-minute time frame or is this on the daily? So let me look. NVIDIA. So NVIDIA on the lower Bollinger, you see that it's, or on the 5-minute time frame, excuse me. See how it's starting to taper here? Even though it looks very gross, this looks absolutely terrible. That tapering is a good signal too. Yes, it can taper and start to pull back down, but from that tapering, that's showing that the sellers are starting to weaken a little bit. Okay, from that weakness of the lower Bollinger, that's how you start targeting that upside. So even though you're seeing a little bit of selling in here still, this is still kind of those conditions where that still looks very positive. Maybe not for some massive bounce, right? But we should be seeing a little bit of reprieve from the current conditions. And as long as you continue tapering away from that lower Bollinger, then that's telling you that the selling is starting to slow. Even if it continues, it's starting to slow compared to this morning, how heavily it was pushing into that lower Bollinger. So a reversal doesn't exactly look great, but these are kind of the conditions that we're starting to look for that type of reversal to the upside. Yeah, very welcome. And thank you, Jared. I appreciate it a lot. All right, everybody. I will see you all tomorrow. Take care. Have a great day. Trade safe. I don't want to hear anybody blowing up their portfolios by the time we talk tomorrow. So, keep your trades small. And for, again, a lot of these data trades that we're taking these smaller contracts on, we have all the way until either June or July, depending on the contract. So really just give it the room to run. A lot of these, again, have quite a bit of running room. So we'll kind of go over them each and every session and discuss, if there's still that running room to the downside or upside, and we'll, reevaluate the position if we need to. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for the support. Have a great day, everybody, and I will talk to you in tomorrow morning's stream. So take care.